Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. President Trump is going to sign bipartisan legislation soon, allowing schools to offer whole and 2% milk. We'll bring it to you live. Tensions are rising in Iran. The U.S. now withdrawing some personnel from a nearby U.S. military base in Qatar. The Supreme Court is allowing a challenge to the counting of late mail-in ballots to move forward. An Illinois Republican congressman brought the case. Trump says he's axing funding to so-called sanctuary cities. He says they're protecting criminals. The move is likely to face legal challenges. Greenland and Denmark officials are in Washington, D.C. today to meet with Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio. President Trump wants Greenland to become U.S. territory. An urgent safety warning. Deadly crashes now linked to illegal Chinese replacement airbags. What drivers need to check immediately?
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. The U.S. is pausing all visa processing for 75 countries, including Somalia, Russia, Nigeria, and Thailand. Fox News obtained a memo from the State Department. It said the pause on visas will begin January 21st and continue indefinitely. In the meantime, the department will reassess its screening and vetting procedures. The White House later posted the Fox News report. It's part of an effort to make sure the visa applicants don't become a public charge, meaning someone who relies on welfare. Other countries affected include Afghanistan, Brazil, Cuba, Colombia, Iran, Pakistan, and Syria. The change comes amid nationwide attention on alleged welfare fraud in Minnesota. Many of those accused are immigrants from Somalia. The U.S. is withdrawing some personnel from a key U.S. military base in Qatar. The move comes amid rising tensions with Iran. Several outlets initially reported on the move, citing an anonymous source. Qatar has now confirmed the report, saying such measures were being taken, and, quote, in response to the current regional tensions. The Pentagon declined to comment on questions about the move. The State Department had no immediate comment on the potential for any security alerts to be issued for American citizens. Meanwhile, in Iran, the head of the nation's judiciary says there will be fast trials ahead for detained protesters. That's despite President Trump repeatedly warning that the U.S. may take military action over violence against protesters. A 26-year-old demonstrator is scheduled to be publicly executed today. Trump is warning the U.S. will take strong action if Iran starts hanging protesters. He made the comments during a CBS interview yesterday.
To hang in, if they hang them, you're going to see some things that I don't know what where you come from and what your thought process is, but you'll perhaps be very happy.
What do you mean by that?
We will take very strong action. If they do such a thing, we will take very strong action.
And this strong action you're talking about, what's the end game?
The end game is to win. I like winning.
How do you define that in Iran?
Well, let's define it in Venezuela. Let's define it with al-Baghdadi. He was wiped out.
Earlier yesterday, Trump encouraged protesters to continue demonstrating. In a Truth Social post, he said, "Save the names of the killers and abusers. They will pay a big price," adding, "Help is on its way." An activist group in Iran says SpaceX has activated free Starlink access across the country. In a post on X, the group Nasnet said Elon Musk's service has waived subscription fees for anyone inside Iran. In the post, the group also urged people not to forget physical camouflage, hiding the Starlink IP and changing the wireless network name. Nasnet said earlier that coordination with Starlink engineers significantly reduced data disruptions linked to the regime's interference, but it cautioned that continued jamming could still impair internet connectivity. Starlink did not immediately respond to a request for comment. And to discuss the latest on the Iranian protests, joining us is Grant Newsham, retired U.S. Marine Colonel, former diplomat, and senior fellow at the Center for Security Policy. Good afternoon, Colonel. So Newsweek is reporting that Iranian state television aired a segment today threatening Trump, saying, quote, "This time the bullet won't miss." An apparent threat. What is your reaction?
Well, that's how they act, and they've tried it before to go after American political figures, senior ones as well. So it's what you expect from them. It really no surprises. You do have to be very careful, but at the same time, there's no illusions as to the nature of that regime and what it represents and what it is. That's why you see millions of Iranians in the streets.
Any consequence to that threat?
Well, there might be. I think Mr. Trump, if he hears it, he salts these things away and he remembers, but it's more than just that threat. It's the entire behavior of the Iranian regime for a long time. And now in this most recent series of events where people are in the streets and now they're gunning them down, at least a few thousand, maybe more. They've got prisoners, cruelly treating them, threatening to hang some of them. This is a regime with no or very little legitimacy, and very little popular legitimacy. And you can see from the protests, the rioters who are going up against a ruthless security service that's backing up these rulers of Iran.
Okay, so talking about the nature of the regime, the London-based news outlet Iranian International concluded that 12,000 protesters have been killed. And this is extremely shocking to hear. What is your reaction to this? And what does it say about the nature of the regime?
Well, it's a regime that only operates based on fear and intimidation, murder. There's Evin prison, and everyone in Tehran knows about it. It's the Bastille of that regime. And when people go in there, they're in for a very rough time. And the reports of how young women are treated are absolutely vile, which I think disgraces that regime, and I think very much answers the question of whether it should continue or not.
And Colonel, I saw one of your articles about this topic. You say protests need urgent American military support, otherwise Trump's lock and loaded threat will ring hollow. Can you just elaborate on that? Why do you think so?
Well, the protesters are going up against really an intact and very ruthless security service, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, and also a sort of a militia of regime thugs that have kept people suppressed and oppressed for a long time. And the opposition, the protesters, really are not armed. They have basically no weapons. And so they're up against people who will shoot them and are killing them in very large numbers, and are going to do more if they can or think they have to. Sometimes they seem to do it for fun. So in this situation like this, sometimes that the people who want freedom need a push. And unless somebody goes after that coercive infrastructure, the IRGC, the militias, and the rest of the police security services, and humiliates them, bombs them, kills them, hammers them. Unless you do that, the opposition tends to get worn down. They almost come up against a barrier, which is too hard to deal with. But if you go after, say, the coercive mechanisms of that regime, then it's got nothing left because it doesn't have the popular support. So that's the debate now: is America, and we're us and maybe the Israelis, and maybe there's some Europeans with some decency as well and a few airplanes. Are they going to do something to give, just a push? The Iranians are already the boots on the ground. There's no need for American forces to go in, but they do need some support, and sometimes that's necessary in these sorts of situations. And this just might be one of them. You think that after 47 years of dealing with this regime and all the trouble it's caused in the region worldwide and all the Americans that it's killed, that there'd be no illusions that there's any sort of deal to be cut with it. This is a window that's open, and windows don't stay open very long. So people are very keen to see what's going to be done. And of course, Mr. Trump, he doesn't follow the mob or what people are telling him to do. And whatever he does, it's going to be his decision. And he's going to do it when he thinks is right.
Okay, so you're saying the window doesn't stay open very long. What does the U.S. ultimately want for Iran? What are the possible actions the U.S. could take?
Well, you can hit them very hard, say, particularly from the air. You showed what can be done with air assaults and long-range missiles back last June, when the Iranian nuclear facilities and operation was hit so hard and effectively. So that would be the way you would do it. You would hit things like IRGC headquarters, command posts, hit the militia centers as well, and make sure that all of those get attention. And once you do that, then they start to lose a lot of the intimidation factor that they're able to put onto the citizens. But you got to do that. Another thing you might do is go after Evin prison in Tehran with precision weapons, knock down the walls, hit the guard posts, hit the parking lot, and then maybe relatives will go in and find their relatives being tortured and get it on iPhones and show the depravity of this regime. Hit the oil export terminals enough so that the regime cannot export oil. And that's the only way it earns foreign exchange in any serious way. Hit the IRGC's drone and missile factories that they use. They sell those to the Russians, of course, for foreign currency and also build up their own arsenals. So there's a fairly short list of targets that if you hit, it's going to have some effect, not just physically, but psychologically. And that's very important here in these situations, that the psychology matters. Do the protesters, the freedom protesters, do they think they have the momentum? Or does the regime think that it's able to sort of lock down and shoot enough people that it can get a handle on things? And one aspect of all of this is the regime has always been very good at controlling the internet. And they got some help on this back in the late 2000s from a major Scandinavian company. But they've used it effectively. And that makes it hard for the protesters who are in a number of different cities to coordinate their activities. When they can coordinate, it tends to sort of have a synergy and once again, a psychological effect. When you realize how much protest is being done, if the regime can split all that, sort of isolate it, it works to their advantage.
Okay, so you're talking about targets that potentially the U.S. should look at. What are the stakes here? Specifically, what does this moment really mean for the Iranian people?
Well, it's been 47 years of control by a ruthless mob. Think of the mafia controlling your country. And this is a chance to have something different. And these are Persians, and they're capable of putting together a decent country, but they need to be freed from this. Really, it's very repressive, murderous, and incredibly corrupt sort of mullahocracy that's been running the place. And it is by no means a consensual government or a popular government. It has looted the country. And as I said, the corruption is immense, as is the resentments on the part of so much of the population. And it has caused so much unrest and just death and murder and chaos in the Middle East and beyond. Down in Latin America, in Argentina, the Iranians blew up a Jewish cultural center. They killed over 100 people. And that's just one example of the terrorism that they've been behind. They have their eyes on the United States as well. But it's really a terrorist regime that has enslaved its people. And the Persian people deserve better, and they're capable of it. They just need the opportunity. But this has, as I say, been 47 years, and we've tried diplomacy. We've tried looking for the so-called moderate Iranian with whom we're going to negotiate. And that goes back to the Ronald Reagan era. And it appears not to exist. We've talked enough to them. So this is, as I said, a window that is open for change. The Iranian people they deserve this, and it's an opportunity, but sometimes you do need some help to sort of get through the barrier.
And Colonel, I just want to ask you one more question about the Chinese regime, Tehran's ally, trading partner, right? It's looking at the situation here. What do you think is the CCP's top concern at this moment?
Well, the top concern would be the example that Iran would show to Chinese people. If you can take a regime which seemed to be solidly in control by virtue of its brutality and was really your cat's paw in the region, and suddenly it's brought down by people going out in the street and protesting and taking on the regime and its authority. If they see that example of a place that's been considered fairly solid to some people, well, the Chinese Communist Party leadership wonders what exactly their own people might do, and that's something they're always terrified of. They're scared to death of an election, a fair election, and having the Chinese people actually vote for who they want. They will tell you that Chinese people can only be ruled with a boot on their neck. Well, I think most Chinese people know that isn't true. So the Iranian example is something that really scares them more than anything. Even more, I think, than losing their outpost in the Middle East, which is Iran. And that's part of the equation, but really it's the example. If Venezuela's shifts, Iran shifts, Cuba shifts, if it does, then to the Chinese, well, that's a string of defeats, but also it's a demonstration that the desire of people to be free, and Chinese people want it no less than anyone else. So it worries the people, the men, and they're all men in Zhongnanhai and Beijing.
Well, all right, Colonel, we always enjoy hearing your insight, and I just wanted to say, I didn't get a chance to say this last time, but that's a cool background you have. I think it's new. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. I've got a train to catch now.
The Supreme Court issued a ruling on who can challenge election rules with ramifications for future elections. We discuss with the legal analyst after this break.
Hi, I'm Susan Lucci. You may know me from my many years on television. I never thought about heart disease until I had my own heart event. I felt this slight pressure on my chest, just slight. I thought, oh, it's nothing, it'll go away. I didn't get it. I did not get it. But a few days later, while shopping at a boutique, that pressure returned, much stronger. It felt like an elephant pressing on my chest. I had a 90% blockage in my main artery and a 75% blockage in the adjacent artery. I was rushed into surgery where I received 2 stents in my arteries. Stents developed through research funded by the American Heart Association. Those stents saved my life. That's why I'm in front of you today, asking you to join me in supporting the American Heart Association by becoming a monthly donor. Call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help fund the next medical breakthrough. Get the next person trained in CPR, the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. I'm so grateful to the American Heart Association. Their research helped save my life. I can enjoy life with my children, my grandchildren, and my friends. Heart disease is America's #1 killer, and your support now can help save your life or the life of someone you love. Give $19 a month with your credit card, and we'll send you this special t-shirt that you can wear to show that you are helping save lives. Please, listen to your heart. The only reason I'm here today is because I did. So please call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org now. Join me as a monthly donor today and help save even more lives. Thank you.
When I arrived in the U.S. at 19, I struggled to find job opportunities without a high school diploma. My name is Ariel, and my entire life changed when I took a chance and I got my high school diploma at age 22. Everything I have, my education, my career, my marriage, I owe to the Adult Literacy Center and my teachers. They were with me every step of the way, helping with my English and math, making sure I pushed through all the challenges. Oh my goodness.
So Ariel, we made this yearbook for you. It has notes from all the people that are here. Your achievement has set an example for so many students. Most importantly, your daughter.
Education was the key that unlocked all my opportunities.
When you graduate, they graduate. Visit finishyourdiploma.org to find free and supportive adult education centers near you.
FBI agents searched a Washington Post reporter's home today as part of an investigation into a government contractor. The Post reported that the contractor is accused of taking home government secrets. The Post reported that agent also searched journalist Hannah Nathanson's devices and seized a phone and a Garmin watch at her Virginia home. Attorney General Pam Bondi says the search was done at the Pentagon's request as part of a leak investigation. According to an affidavit, the search was related to an investigation into a system administrator in Maryland. The individual was charged earlier this month with unlawful retention of national defense information. The suspect held a top-secret security clearance and is accused of printing classified and sensitive reports at work. According to court documents, authorities found documents marked secret during a search of his Maryland home and car this month. Senator Elissa Slotkin says she is under federal investigation over a video urging members of the military and intelligence community to refuse so-called illegal orders. Slotkin disclosed the probe in an interview with the New York Times, saying she was notified by the office of U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro. The video was released last November. It featured 6 Democratic lawmakers, all former military or intelligence officials, warning that the administration posed a threat to the Constitution. They didn't specify what orders they considered unlawful. The investigation follows separate action against Senator Mark Kelly. War Secretary Pete Hegseth accused Kelly of undermining military discipline. Hegseth wrote on X, Mark Kelly and 5 other members of Congress released a reckless and seditious video that was clearly intended to undermine good order and military discipline. The Supreme Court is allowing a challenge to the counting of late mail-in ballots to move forward. Illinois Republican Congressman Mike Bost brought the case. Illinois had argued that allowing the lawsuit would encourage more election litigation and cause chaos for election officials. The Illinois law allows ballots postmarked by Election Day to be counted if they are received up to 2 weeks late. More than a dozen states and the District of Columbia accept mail-in ballots received after Election Day, as long as they're postmarked on or before that date. President Donald Trump has weighed in on the issue before, arguing that late ballots and late electoral counts undermine confidence in elections. The Supreme Court today allowed Representative Mike Bost's lawsuit challenging Illinois' mail-in ballot policy to move forward. Joining us to discuss is Bobby Ann Cox, civil rights attorney, fellow at the Brownstone Institute, and legal analyst. So, Bobby Ann, good to see you, as always. Of course, would you explain for us in layman's terms what this case is about and what the Supreme Court decided?
Yes, of course. So this case that just was ruled on today by the Supreme Court is not about the actual underlying Illinois state law. What it's about is whether or not this congressman had standing to bring the case in the first place. So a trial court had ruled, now this case has been going on since 2022. So we're into, entering the 4th year here. But the trial court in this case had not ruled on the merits of the case. They threw the case out saying that this congressman did not have standing. He did not have the right to bring the case in the first place. Of course, the congressman then appealed that decision, but the appellate court ruled against him there as well. They also said he did not have standing to bring this lawsuit. So he appealed to the United States Supreme Court, which just today ruled that the lower courts were not correct. They reversed those decisions by the lower courts. They said he does have standing to sue and to bring this case. So now they are remanding the case back down to the lower courts so that the case can actually move forward and be heard on the merits. So today's ruling is not about Illinois' underlying law saying that ballots can be counted, even if they're received up to 14 days post-election day. That's not what was ruled on today. It's simply whether or not this congressman has the right to bring the case. And the Supreme Court has said that he does.
So plaintiffs must demonstrate injury before their suit moves forward in federal court. Does this ruling say you don't have to show harm?
No, that's not what this ruling says. The opinion was written by Justice Roberts, and it was a 7-2 decision. So most of the judges on the panel, in fact, did agree. And so the majority is 7-2. But here what was said was you do have to still prove that you are being injured in some way in order to bring a lawsuit. So what Justice Roberts and the majority opinion said is that a congressman, like in this instance, a congressman who is challenging a state law, which is a law specifically about how the ballots are counted in a race, in a political race, he does have standing because he does have injury that he's going to sustain in the event that the law stays in place. And the injuries that the congressman has been alleging is, and which the court agreed with him, is that, it's going to cost him money to run his campaign and then keep his campaign going for the 2 weeks post-election day. He's got to pay his staff to oversee the counting of these tardy ballots that are arriving up to 2 weeks after the election day. So it's going to cost him extra money. And you know what? It's also going to cost, in addition to resources and money, it's also potentially going to cost the candidate in reputation. Because if you have ballots that are being counted that shouldn't be counted, or you have ballots that should be counted that are not being counted, you are actually going to be injuring the integrity of the election, which could injure the candidate. So specifically, let's say that the candidate loses the election because ballots received after the election day deadline are being counted when they shouldn't be. Obviously that is an injury that is sustained. And also, you could have the injury where, let's say, the candidate challenging does win the election, but they win by a smaller margin because some of the votes should have been counted or should not have been counted. So if they win by a smaller margin, that can affect their reputation next time around when they try to run again. It could be a negative impact on their reputation because their victory margin was not as large as it should have been. So there is indeed still a requirement to show that you have injury, you're going to sustain an injury in order to bring a lawsuit. That has not been diminished by this ruling, but you do have to have, the court did specify, you do have to be the candidate challenging a law that will affect the counting of the ballots in your race. So they did put a little bit of a qualification in there.
Okay, so what potential implications does this have for future elections? Illinois argued chaos would ensue because it's opening the door to candidates across the country to sue.
Well, I think that's an exaggeration. They're saying chaos is going to ensue. It doesn't mean everybody in the world or everybody in the country can bring a lawsuit challenging, the election laws if they don't like them. As I just mentioned, the Supreme Court, the majority opinion here did say in the opinion, you do have to be a candidate, and you have to be a candidate that is challenging a specific election law that affects how the ballots are going to be counted in your election, in your race. So they do have that qualifier. And, I'll also note that there were actually 3 plaintiffs in this case. The congressman was just one of them. There were also 2 other plaintiffs. And the Supreme Court did not rule on whether or not those 2 other plaintiffs would have standing in this case. They were presidential electors. And so, this is simply saying candidates who are in a race, a political race, an election, would have standing to challenge a law that would affect the counting of their ballots. So it does really narrow the playing field. So this idea or this suggestion that there's going to be chaos across the country and everybody is going to start suing over election laws. No, it's a pretty small group of people that this decision is allowing to have standing to challenge a state's election law. You have to be a candidate. You have to have skin in the game. So I don't agree with the idea that this is going to all of a sudden open the floodgates and cause chaos across the country.
Okay, Bobby Ann, let's leave it there. Great explanation. Thank you so much today.
Yes, nice to see you again.
The Department of Homeland Security is confirming that the ICE agent involved in the deadly shooting of a woman in Minnesota was injured. The DHS has confirmed to NTD that the agent suffered internal bleeding to his torso. This is from the incident last week where Renee Good appeared to drive her car into him. and then she was shot and killed. Her former father-in-law, Timmy Macklin, told CNN that he doesn't blame ICE or Good. Macklin mentioned seeing the video and saying it's hard to react in a situation like that. He went on to say that everybody makes bad choices, adding that if Good had been walking with God, she would not have been there. Minnesota is getting sued over the state's DEI policies. The Justice Department has launched a lawsuit against the state's so-called affirmative action regime. The case challenges the state's requirement for all state agencies to implement sex and race-based affirmative action plans. On X, the department said, quote, "Making hiring decisions based on immutable characteristics like race and sex is simple discrimination." Attorney General Pam Bondi added in her own post that this is, quote, "discriminatory DEI codified into bad state policy." And the fallout over massive alleged fraud in Minnesota continues. President Trump said the government will suspend payments to so-called sanctuary cities that defy federal immigration enforcement. In a Truth Social post this morning, Trump said the payments would end on February 1st. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on that, plus the president's comments on the recent ICE-involved fatal shooting.
President Trump made the announcement that the government will cut off funding to so-called sanctuary cities during a speech in Detroit.
Starting February 1st, we're not making any payments to sanctuary cities or states having sanctuary cities because they do everything possible to protect criminals at the expense of American citizens, and it breeds fraud and crime.
President Trump says massive illegal immigration places a heavy burden on the country.
No country can afford to take in millions of people, pay for their education, their health care, their hospitals. You just can't do it. And we all have a heart. You can't do it.
While also putting Americans in danger.
But many of those people are murderers. They're people released from jails, prisons, mental institutions, insane asylums. They're people that are drug dealers. They're addicts.
Trump's latest comments on the issue come as the president faces increasing opposition in Democratic-led areas to his immigration policy. That resistance intensified in the wake of the ICE-involved fatal shooting of protester Renee Good, who hit an ICE agent with her vehicle in Minneapolis. Trump discussed Good on CBS.
I want to say to the father that I love all of our people, and I would bet you that she, under normal circumstances, was a very solid, wonderful person, but, you know, her actions were pretty tough.
Trump's move to defund sanctuary cities is expected to face challenges in the court. In April, a court prohibited a push by Trump to rescind funding for jurisdictions deemed to be sanctuaries. Homeland Security Advisor Stephen Miller says there has been a huge increase in arrests of what he called domestic insurgents in recent days, and says those numbers are going to go up, speaking on Fox News.
They train their insurgents on how to block ICE vehicles, how to try to free arrestees, and then they dox ICE officers, they follow them home, they follow them to where they sleep at night. So again, it's a sophisticated insurgency involving a large number of radicalized, extremist, violent left-wing operators stoked by the Democrat Party.
And President Trump says his administration plans to imprison any fraudster, politician, or public official involved in what he called sick plots to loot and pillage the country.
Our country wasn't built by people who tried to lie and cheat and scam their way to success. It was built by legends like Henry Ford, Henry Dow, Thomas Edison.
The president also vowed to deport those who rob Americans.
We're also going to revoke the citizenship of any naturalized immigrant from Somalia or anywhere else who is convicted of defrauding our citizens. We're going to get them the hell out of here fast.
Homeland Security announced yesterday that the United States has terminated Somalia's designation for temporary protected status effective on March 17th. The cancellation of status means Somali nationals in the U.S. who do not have a legal status must leave the country by the deadline. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Lawmakers are now looking at how they can better detect and prevent federal fraud before it happens. This comes in the wake of massive fraud allegations in Minnesota. Here's more on yesterday's hearing.
House Republicans are increasing scrutiny of massive alleged fraud in Minnesota's social service system, pressing for systemic reforms. At a hearing yesterday, House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer said the fraud led to more than $9 billion being stolen from American taxpayers. Comer suggested that weak safeguards allowed fraud to flourish and taxpayers to be robbed.
Much of this fraud occurred because there were no proper safeguards put in place to prevent fraud before the funds were paid. There was also too little oversight on how the money was used once it went out the door to recipients.
He blamed the Biden administration for rushing out federal funds without guardrails in place, saying Republicans repeatedly warned this would invite abuse. Congressman Pete Sessions said agencies are incentivized to pay fast instead of stopping fraud early.
They're incented to make quick payments and to try and figure things out later. As we have seen countless times, this approach needs to be looked at and changed.
He urged Congress to find out how to transition the Pandemic Response Accountability Committee, or PRAC, to fraud detection and prevention. During the hearing, lawmakers questioned PRAC on how advanced analytics can stop the theft of taxpayer dollars.
The hallmark of most fraud schemes is that people hide information. So leveraging data analytics allows us to see patterns, trends, anomalies, hidden connections, to shine a bright light on what's actually happening. That is the path forward.
A Treasury Department official testified on the limitations currently preventing them from stopping suspicious payments.
One of the pieces that we are missing is the ability to ping authoritative federal databases to confirm a payee ID, such as a tax identification number or a social security number.
Okay.
So we already received the data. We just can't verify it.
She said the Treasury has been authorized since 2019 to provide do-not-pay services to states that administer federal funds, but she said it has been underutilized. That's a system where agencies check various data sources to verify if a recipient should receive federal payments. Meanwhile, one lawyer says Minnesota whistleblowers are providing evidence that could lead to the federal prosecution of Governor Tim Walz. House Majority Whip Tom Emmer spoke to Just the News. He said he expects one or more Minnesota state employees to testify they told Walz about the fraud while it was happening, and Walz ignored them. He said that should be enough for criminal charges against the governor. Governor Walz is pushing back on claims that he turned a blind eye to fraud. In several statements, he said his administration has been investigating the issue and for years has been cracking down on fraud.
House Republicans are planning to hold Hillary Clinton in contempt of Congress. This comes after she refused to testify today amid the probe into Jeffrey Epstein. Here's House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer reacting to her no-show.
I don't think it's any secret. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton joined her husband in defying a bipartisan lawful congressional subpoena to show up today. I think what's most disappointing to the Oversight Committee is the fact that we have, in good faith, negotiated with the Clintons' attorneys for 5 months. Throughout the past 5 months, they've implied to us they were trying to make a date work.
In a letter to Comer, the Clintons called the subpoenas illegal, or rather legally invalid, to be specific, and said they don't plan to show up. Comer said he plans to have the Oversight Committee vote on holding both Clintons in criminal contempt. Once it passes the committee, it will go to the full House floor for a vote. The committee chairman also said he's disappointed that no Democrats on the committee showed up today despite voting in favor of subpoenaing the Clintons. Comer told reporters his committee is serious about the Epstein probe and seeks to have Epstein's associate Ghislaine Maxwell testify as well. The Clintons have not been accused of any wrongdoing in relation to Epstein. Greenland and Denmark officials are in Washington, D.C. today to meet with Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio. President Trump wants Greenland to become U.S. territory. More news after this break.
That truly matters for each and every one of us. This is what you've been waiting for. See it at least once in your lifetime. Shen Yun. Get tickets now. ShenYun.com. Discover the ancient secret to vitality and longevity with Puretang Black Ginseng. Crafted from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng, each root is carefully nurtured for over 2,260 days, undergoing a traditional 9-round handcrafted process of steaming and drying to unlock full potency and absorption. Experience pure, natural energy with Puretang Black Ginseng. Order now at Puretang.com.
This land, our America, built on hard work, determination, and grit. Sometimes the days run long, but hope, it never runs out, even when the food does, for America's veterans, working parents, even kids. Because in every corner of every town, even yours, millions of hard-working neighbors are facing a hunger crisis, many for the very first time. In this land of plenty, affording food shouldn't require second jobs and third shifts or choosing between your groceries and bills. Today, you can help change that. Call or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, less than 63 cents a day, to help every neighbor get the food they urgently need. Because taking care of each other is what makes America strong. We're Feeding America, not just a name, but an action. Working with over 200 local food banks like the ones in your community. And demand is soaring.
You go to the grocery store, you spend $100, and $100 is a new $20 bill.
Even with 2 full-time jobs, it's hard to make ends meet.
These are tough times, but when we stand together, we become the very best of a strong America. Please call or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org. Just $19 a month can feed a family today. And your first gift can double an impact. Plus, we'll send you this free canvas bag as a reminder of the hope you're delivering.
When it comes down to it, it's about taking care of your family first and the loved ones that you need to provide for.
Because you're not just giving food, you're fueling resilience for people across the nation. You're feeding America. Call or go online today to helpfeedingamerica.org, and your gift can double an impact.
President Trump's push to put Greenland in the hands of the United States front and center. Officials from Greenland and Denmark are in Washington, D.C. today. Foreign ministers from the Arctic region are meeting with Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio. NTD's Melina Weisskopf has more.
Today's meetings with the foreign ministers from Greenland and Denmark comes as President Trump doubles down on security concerns in the region. This morning, the president posted, NATO should be leading the way for us to get it. If we don't, Russia or China will, and that's not going to happen. NATO becomes far more formidable and effective with Greenland in the hands of the United States. Anything less than that is unacceptable. The prime ministers of the two areas spoke yesterday about the message they plan to emphasize at the White House meeting.
If we have to choose between the USA and Denmark here and now, we choose Denmark. We choose NATO, we choose the Kingdom of Denmark, we choose the EU.
We want to engage in dialogue and we want to cooperate. We are not looking for conflict, but our message is clear. Greenland is not for sale.
The president has repeatedly emphasized the lack of defense in the Arctic to protect from Russian and Chinese ambitions.
You know what their defense is? 2 dog sleds. In the meantime, you have Russian destroyers and submarines and China destroyers and submarines all over the place.
But Congress is split on the president's goals in the Arctic. A bipartisan group of lawmakers, mostly Democrats, is pushing legislation to prevent President Trump from taking military action in Greenland. But yesterday, House Speaker Mike Johnson downplayed the idea that the U.S. military will get involved.
There's no declaration of war pending for Greenland. It's just not a thing. I don't anticipate any boots on the ground anywhere anytime soon.
The Danish ambassador is also set to meet today with lawmakers from the Arctic caucus, including Senator Lisa Murkowski and Senator Angus King. Senator Murkowski is one who has been so far critical of the White House's comments on Greenland. She's part of a congressional delegation that will travel to Denmark later this week. It's a group made up of mostly Democrats, but a few Republicans. They plan to travel to Denmark to further discuss the issue and show congressional support for NATO. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
The U.S. is now entering the next part of peace plans in Gaza to bring an end to the conflict in the region. Phase 2 establishes the National Committee for the Administration of Gaza. That's a transitional administration for the Gaza Strip. The announcement was made on X by U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff as part of the president's 20-point plan to end the Gaza conflict. The Post also noted this phase marks the start of a full demilitarization and reconstruction of Gaza. Witkoff added that the U.S. expects Hamas to fully comply with its obligations. This includes returning the final deceased hostage. This follows Phase 1, where humanitarian aid was delivered, a ceasefire maintained, and all living hostages returned. The State Department says Venezuela has released multiple detained Americans, calling it an important step in the right direction. The release comes 10 days after U.S. forces captured former dictator Nicolas Maduro and his wife. The department declined to say how many Americans were freed, though an official said diplomatic teams were involved in securing the releases. Venezuela says around 400 prisoners were freed so far, Venezuelan and non-Venezuelan as well. Rights groups report far lower numbers, between 60 and 70. Human rights groups say hundreds of political prisoners remain behind bars. The Venezuelan government denies holding people for political reasons and says it has already released most of the 2,000 people detained after protests following the contested 2024 election. Highway officials are issuing an urgent warning after deadly crashes have been linked to Chinese replacement airbags. They're saying the airbags were involved in at least 10 crashes, 2 leading to serious injuries and 8 resulting in death. Officials say the crashes should not have been fatal. After previous crashes, all 10 drivers had their airbags replaced by ones made by a Chinese manufacturer known as DTN. According to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, these airbags were likely illegally imported. The Highway Administration said the DTN airbag inflators malfunctioned in crashes, sending large metal fragments into drivers' chests, necks, eyes, and faces. The crashes involved Chevy Malibus and Hyundai Satanas. Though officials could not confirm the risk is limited to these makes and models. The Highway Administration is urging drivers to check their vehicle history and stop driving immediately if one of these inflators is found. Mass protests against social injustice has erupted in central China. It follows the sudden death of a 13-year-old student at his school last week. The school attempted to get rid of the body secretly without letting the parents see it at all. Now the parents are reportedly being silenced by local authorities. The move quickly sparked heavy criticism and suspicion around the case as many people took to the streets. What are they demanding from authorities, and why are they calling the incident a cover-up of crimes threatening people's safety in China? NTD's Flora Hua has the story.
Media reports and videos show the school tried to transfer the student's body away with an ambulance right after he died. A truck reportedly drove by the student's uncle, who stopped the ambulance, urging it not to leave before his parents see the body. When the student's parents arrived, they saw blood on the corner of their child's mouth, and there was a nail-sized hole on his left chest, appearing to be a needle hole. Yet no one from the school could explain.
看看俺小孩给在学校里不明不白的就这样没有了，学校也不给俺们一个说话，不知道小孩是咋样没有的。到现在为止，学校也不出来一个人给俺一个说话，让俺们一直在这等。
The parents said they weren't aware of anything unusual regarding their child's health. The school reportedly failed to provide further information and refused to hand over CCTV footage, claiming the surveillance camera was broken. The lack of transparency drove many people to demonstrate in front of the school, including other students' parents. They're heard demanding an independent investigation on the boy's death. The protests continued all throughout the day. Videos show special police forces were deployed there to suppress the unrests. Concerns over whether the boy was targeted for his organs are rising on the internet. Now, information circulating online suggests the student's family may have been oppressed. Meanwhile, the parents have remained silent for days. Flora Hua, NTD News.
This is not an isolated case. Last September, a high schooler in China's city of Tianjin was announced dead in a hospital where he was getting treatment. His family discovered that his liver was taken, with other organs reportedly being stabbed. He reportedly fell out of a school building from the second floor, and the school's nurse confirmed that his bones were fractured. The parent company of Saks Fifth Avenue filed for bankruptcy protection yesterday. This marks the first major retailer bankruptcy of the new year. More news after this break.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, please listen closely. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. It's a rate lock for your life insurance that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. Many policies you see don't have one, but you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. This plan was designed for people on a fixed income with coverage options that start at $9.95 a month. That's less than 35 cents a day. Your rate is locked in for life. Coverage can never be canceled, and your acceptance is guaranteed. You cannot be turned down because of your health. See for yourself. Call for an information kit and gift. Both are free with no obligation.
Call 1-800-624-6556 for your free information and your free gift. That's 1-800-624-6556. 1-800-624-6556. Call now.
I'm Amy Grant, and I want to talk to you from my heart about the heart. I would have been the last person on the list to say this woman has a problem with her heart. So no, there was nothing about my life that said, you have a ticking time bomb in your chest. But I did. I wound up in the office of a cardiologist because I was there with my husband. And at the tail end of that, the cardiologist looked at me and said, I want to see you. No one was more surprised than I was to learn I was living with a rare heart condition. He said, Amy, this condition, you'll be fine, and then catastrophic. A few months later, I had open heart surgery that saved my life. And I owe it to the research and life-saving medical breakthroughs developed by the American Heart Association. That's why I'm asking you to join me and become a monthly donor to the American Heart Association. Please call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help fund the next medical breakthrough, get the next person trained in CPR, and get the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. If this could happen to me, it could happen to anybody. Heart disease is America's #1 killer, but your support can save your life or the life of someone you love. Give $19 a month with your credit card and we'll send you this special t-shirt you can wear to show you're part of a community of monthly donors working to help save more lives like mine. I'm grateful for the American Heart Association. Their research gave me more time to do the things I love with the people I love. So listen to your heart. I'm here today because I did. Call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org now to become a monthly donor. Give this holiday season and your first month's gift will be matched. Thank you.
The parent company of Saks Fifth Avenue filed for bankruptcy protection yesterday. This marks the first major retailer bankruptcy of the new year. Here's more.
Saks Global filed for bankruptcy protection late on Tuesday. It marks one of the largest retail collapses since the pandemic. And it comes barely a year after a deal that brought Saks Fifth Avenue under the same roof as Bergdorf Goodman and Neiman Marcus. The announcement led to uncertainty over the future of US luxury fashion, although the high-end department store said it would stay open for now. That after it finalised a $1.75 billion financing package and hired a new chief executive. Richard Baker will be replaced by former CEO of Neiman Marcus, Jeffrey Van Rijndonk. Baker led the acquisition strategy, which left Saks Global with debt. The company also hired other former Neiman Marcus executives in leading roles. Saks Global filed bankruptcy documents with a Texas court. It estimated its assets and liabilities were in a range of $1 billion to $10 billion. The court process is meant to give the luxury retailer room to negotiate a debt restructuring with creditors or find a new owner. But if that fails, the company may be forced to close. Saks is a retailer long loved by the rich and famous, but it fell on hard times after the pandemic as competition from online outlets rose. Brands also started selling more items through their own stores. The original Saks Fifth Avenue store was opened by retail pioneer Andrew Saks in 1867.
Snowboarder Chloe Kim says she's heading to the Milan Cortina Olympics. The athlete made the announcement after tearing her labrum in her shoulder during a training run last week in Switzerland.
You know, I went through a bunch of different waves of emotions, but honestly, I'm really excited for this week. I'm actually picking my man up from the train station in a few minutes, so we decided to kind of make a trip out of it. I think once I get through this week, I'll feel a lot better.
Kim won the last 2 Olympic gold medals in the halfpipe event. The 25-year-old will be the heavy favorite to win in Italy if she's 100% healthy. She said she won't compete this weekend and didn't mention the Winter X Games in Aspen later this month, the last big competitions before the Olympics. The women's Olympic halfpipe event starts February 11th. Registration for the 2028 Summer Olympics ticket lottery opened this morning, with millions of tickets up for grabs. NTD's Christina Corona tells us how to get them.
Registration for the 2028 Los Angeles Olympics ticket lottery opens Wednesday, January 14th at 7 a.m., giving fans a chance to secure tickets to the games. Single tickets start at $28, with about 14 million tickets expected to be released for the Olympics and Paralympics. Here's how it works. Fans will create a profile and enter the lottery on Wednesday. Winners will be randomly assigned a time slot to buy tickets, which will be sent via email. Los Angeles area residents, along with fans in Oklahoma City, where softball and canoe slalom events will be held, qualify for a special early access window. To qualify, your credit card billing address must match zip codes in Los Angeles, Orange, Riverside, San Bernardino, or Ventura counties in California, or Canadian or Cleveland counties in Oklahoma. Early access runs April 2nd through April 6th for those who register by March 18th. The 2028 Olympics will be held at several iconic Southern California venues. The LA Memorial Coliseum and SoFi Stadium will host the opening and closing ceremonies. Track and field will compete at the Coliseum during the first week of the games, with swimming scheduled for the second week at SoFi Stadium. Venice Beach will host the triathlon. Long Beach and Carson will be major hubs, hosting volleyball, rowing, canoe sprint, handball, rugby sevens, track cycling, and tennis. Riviera Country Club will host golf. The Los Angeles Convention Center will host fencing, judo, table tennis, taekwondo, and wrestling, while the Pasadena Rose Bowl Aquatic Center will host diving. The 2028 Summer Olympics run July 14th through July 30th. Christina Corona, NTD News.
President Trump is going to sign bipartisan legislation soon, allowing schools to offer whole and 2% milk. We'll bring it to you live. Don't go away.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
They're just young people. Hungry, homeless, and vulnerable. Abused youth often feel safer on the street. Now, more than ever, that's the most dangerous place of all. Covenant House is helping young adults facing homelessness. We're providing safe shelter to thousands, but the need is overwhelming, and no young person is ever turned away. Please call or go online now with your gift of $19 a month to help a young person. You'll provide safe shelter, hot meals, and medical care. Your gift will show them they're loved. Homeless young people are afraid and alone with nowhere else to turn.
You want to know that there's somewhere you can go that's safe. So the Covenant House did that for us.
Please call now with your gift of $19 a month. We'll send you this blanket as a reminder of the comfort your gift provides a young person tonight. Please don't wait. Your gift is the lifeline a young person needs now. Call the number on your screen or go online to safeplacetosleep.org. Thank you for saving precious lives.
We come from a long line of farmers, and there's a sense of pride with being part of these multi-generational businesses. But there's also a significant amount of pressure. My senior year of high school, my dad made the decision that this world no longer needed him in it. I don't know if he was overwhelmed by the bills and checks that weren't going to be coming in because of the strawberries dying off, but it breaks my heart that my dad made a permanent decision for a temporary issue. Don't feel like you have to go through it alone.
Farmers have to take care of their physical and their mental health because